Welcome back to the show, everybody. This is the Shankly Sessions, the Liverpool podcast that we bring you each and every day on the upper tier. Head out there to YouTube, smash that subscribe and bell notification button, and of course, drop a like on the video. Tonight, we're going to do like a short sort of bonus show where we're going to have a talk about Cody Gakpo. I didn't want to jump on straight away last night when the news broke because, quite frankly, I didn't think we were going to get the guy, and it was a shock to me as well as everyone else in the Liverpool community. I had no idea we were in for this guy. I just assumed he was United bound. Same agent as Eric Ten Hag. Um, they have a relationship there with PSV, obviously, and they've been chasing him since the summer. So I just assumed he was going to go there. So what I knew about the kid was not a whole lot. Um, Obviously, watched him for Holland in the World Cup. He was excellent. And also, I seen some highlights from PSV in Europe and stuff like that where he looked really, really good. Um, has all the attributes and stuff like that. But before we get into the kid, let's bring us back 24 hours nearly. So we're sitting here, we're watching the Aston Villa game. We run out 3-1 winners, and then a great goal by Bietic. So we're happy. We're celebrating our second away win in the Premier League this season. Things look good. Not easy getting a win, as we said in the match reaction coming back after the World Cup. These guys haven't played with each other for a while. So it was good, especially getting that game under their belt with the Carabao Cup, even though we lost Man City. It was obviously vital in terms of moving on to the league game. But sure, we're all celebrating. It's St. Stephen's Day. We're after getting a win. It's all good. And then the next thing, the news breaks. I got a message on WhatsApp from one of the lads in our group, Greg, who said, it looks like Gapco is going to Liverpool. And I said, nah, you're messing with me. He's nailed on for United. Next thing, Paul Joyce releases his piece in the Times or whatever it was, Gapco to Liverpool. Next, we had Fabrizio Romano. Done deal, here we go. Next thing, we had the PSV director confirming the deal had been done. We heard that Gapco was on his way imminently to Liverpool. And I couldn't believe it. A madness, an absolute madness. I mean, you think about it, you look back and you think about, you know, what are Liverpool actually doing? What is their strategy in the transfer market? Because some would say, look, we're crying out for midfielders, even though we've lost Jota and Diaz and we're light enough up front. I don't think anyone expected us to land a player up front, and that we were going to have to muddle through that until Jota and Diaz came back, work with what we had, and that it was the midfield where we were going to try and strengthen. And that was the news coming out from everywhere. And out of nowhere, this happens, and you're thinking, God, Agent Van Dijk at the World Cup has done a real good job, hasn't he? Excuse the Hello Kitty Cup, of course, folks. You know yourself at Christmas time. Dishwasher does be loaded to the gazelles. But you're thinking, what did Van Dijk do while he was away at the World Cup? How did he convince this guy that the red side of Merseyside, as opposed to Manchester, was the place to go? And then we hear about the deal and some parts of the deal. 37 million was the release clause. That's what we got him for. And there's something like 13 million in add-ons. Um, it's just an amazing deal for a talented guy like this. I went back, I had a look at some of his highlight reels. You look at him even in the World Cup, he was able to score with his left, with his right, with his head. The kid has it all. Could become an absolute sensation at Liverpool under the tutelage of Klopp. And it was just an amazing, and it was just out of nowhere. It was so out of left field. And I was talking to the guys today in the group as well, and I was saying to them, I had no idea, Gapco, that we were in for him or anyone. We were anywhere near it. I thought he was nailed on for United. And they said no, there had been links there and stuff like that. Now I know there was a story linking us with it that we had a little bit of interest and stuff like that, but like that went dead very, very quickly. But this is the shrewd business that Liverpool does, doesn't it? They identify a player, they go, that's the one we want. They go in, they put the money down, they negotiate a deal with decent add-ons and stuff like that, and they get their player. There's no messing around. It seems like, and clearly they don't do this, but it seems like they get their job done in hours. You know what I mean? Even though I'm sure it took longer than that, and I'm sure there was multiple conversations during that month in Qatar between Van Dijk and Gapco and stuff like that. But he's a 23-year-old sensation. And look, you look at the reaction last night. United fans are really hurt by this again. And look, I'm old enough and have the vintage to remember Liverpool in the 90s and stuff like that, having to settle for third and fourth choices and all this kind of thing when they were signing players. So I understand how United feel in terms of missing out on their targets and stuff like that. We lived with it for years. Some of the signings we did were absolutely horrific. Players that should have never seen the inside of Anfield, except if they were playing on the away side. But that's the situation we were in. But there is a kind of a pattern developing here, and I seen a graphic today. I'll just bring it up for you. This is a real interesting graphic when you look at it, because these are key players that United have wanted. And Eric Ten Hag, certainly the two boys on the left were certainly two players that he was definitely in for, and he hasn't got them. So it must be frustrating for him. And it would lead you to believe a couple of weeks ago, myself and Darren did a show when United's finances came out on their accounts and stuff like that. And I expressed a concern at the time about their liquidity and about their cash flow and stuff like that, and whether they'd be capable of going into the market. Obviously, the Ronaldo situation evolved, and now they have to find a way to replace him and stuff like that. And obviously, they're pursuing the Joe Felix deal, which looks like a loan with a buy option and stuff like that, which might suit them better at the moment. But I did identify at the time that I was shocked at their liquidity and at their cash availability at the time. I thought was quite shocking and very, very low for a club of the stature of Man United. And it sowed seeds in my mind at the time, questioning what would be feasible for them in this window. And I know there was a lot of talk going around that Ten Hag was going to get a 200 million war chest and 150 million war chest and all this. And I just said to myself, where is this going to come from? Is this going to come from potentially new owners? Because at the time it had come out that the club was up for sale and stuff like that. Because it certainly wasn't going to come from the current financial structuring. And it was a kind of a weird one as well when you looked at it with the Glazers putting the club up for sale and wanting to do a deal, and the mammoth amount of money, anywhere between 5 to 7 billion in that region, stuff like that, which is a massive amount of money for a club that needs a lot of work done on their stadium, that basically needs a whole new training facility and needs continual overhauling of their squad. Whereas if you look at Liverpool and around the 3.5 billion or whatever it is, who have just put in a new training facility, who are continually to redevelop Anfield, who have a solid enough base in their squad, but definitely needed work in their midfield. Again, we can't legislate for the injuries and stuff like that. But this came out of nowhere. And if you look at it now, to do a little bit of work on this, when all our players are fit, this is 6 sensational players that we have to choose from up front in any combination that you want. We know, looking into Gakpo, that he can play across the front. He can play anywhere in a front line and stuff like that. He's so versatile, and that must have been something that Klopp looked at, because Klopp can basically slot him in. If he wants to take Salah out, he can put him in there. If he wants to take Darwin out, he can put him in there. If he wants to play him in the Bobby role, he can put him in there. If he wants to play him out left where Lewis plays, or Jota or whatever, he can play any combination of these 6, but he can use Gakpo as that versatile cog to move players around into positions and stuff like that. So it's a real shrewd bit of business as well to bring in a player of that versatility. And we know that Ten Hag will be hurting about this, because we know Ten Hag likes players that are versatile as well. If you go back and you look at his Ajax days, that really, really appeals to him as well. So then you go and you look at Cody and you think, well, how does this guy stack up to what we have at the moment? And where does it lie? And then you look at these stats here. Another great graphic, and you look at Mo, and you look at all the stars here for Cody Gakpo, 23 years of age, 0.8 goals, shots on target 2.1, only behind Darwin 2.8, assists, chances created, take-ons completed. Like, he ticks an awful lot of boxes. And remember, we're talking here 23 years of age. 23 years of age. He could play top level football for the next 7 to 8 years. Incredible. I mean, you look at this is how he stacks up. Now, I know we're talking about the difference in the Dutch league compared to the Premier League and stuff like that. So you have to allow for that as well. But when you look at this and how it really stacks up, and then this other one that came out from Transfer Market, this tweet where he's paid 159 games, 55 goals, 50 assists, 23 years of age, so 105 goal contributions in 159 games, 23 years of age. Again, phenomenal. Again, I wouldn't get, you have to be careful about the stats as well and how you read. And Darren says this to me all the time. I sometimes get excited about them and stuff like that. But Darren always says, sometimes the stats tell a lot of truths and they tell a lot of lies. Darren often says that on the show, and he's correct. But when you look at this kid and you look at him in the World Cup, I think he scored a goal in each of the group games for the Dutch in the World Cup, and he scored with his right foot, his left foot, and a header. So this guy has it all. So he'll be a huge positive step for Liverpool as well. And we'll talk about Stephen Warnock was on Sky Sports and he was talking about it as well and how he felt about it. We'll get into that in a few minutes. But when you look at it, when you look at some of these stats, it's a very exciting player. And it begs to wonder, why didn't United get this player over the line? Ian in the comments, what's the crack, Ian? Just thought I'd drop in. Where's everybody? We're all missing in action tonight, Ian. It's a Christmas, but you're good to have you on board. Good to have you in there, my friend. And I hope you had a lovely Christmas, St. Stephen's Day, as we push on to the new year. So they're the kind of stats on how he matches up to Darwin and to Mo Salah. Then you look at what Sky put together. Sky put together some nice, interesting stats here. If you look at him in the Dutch league at the moment, he's first in most of it, bar take-ons completed, where he is second. But this is like, 9 goals and 12 assists, 51 shots, 59 chances created, and take-ons completed 26. So he's first in most of the stats in the Dutch league, with the exception of take-ons completed, where he's second. And I would imagine that second stat is marginal. If you look at some of this heat map here and his goals scored, shots, chances created, he looks a sensation in the Dutch league, an absolute sensation. And we've seen it as well when we've watched PSV this year. But yeah, it begs the question, why do United stall on these deals and miss out on these players that would be hugely influential? And you look at Ten Hag there as well. I mean, has he really landed any of his targets that he actually, his first choice targets? We know he wanted Darwin in the summer and he didn't get him. We know he wanted Timber, he didn't get him. Ericsson obviously came in from Brentford on a free. We know he wanted De Jong and he got Casemiro. Again, not a bad deputy at all. Casemiro's been electric for them and stuff like that. But you really have to ask yourself, not landing those first targets and stuff like that. And, how does he feel about that? How does he feel about taking on that job? And that's the situation he finds him in. And like, they've been 6 months involved in this Cody Gakpo situation and they still haven't landed the player. And Liverpool seem to come in out of nowhere, like they do with a number of these targets that we showed earlier. They just come in out of nowhere, boom, and things are done very, very quickly. So it's exciting time for Liverpool. Obviously, we haven't even gotten into the transfer window yet, and this is the first ace thrown down on the table in this card game. So it's fair to say we definitely need to look. If you look at those choices we have up front now, if we could create a similar type pool in midfield, I think in defence we're okay. If we shift Gomez out to the right as backup for Trent, maybe we need to bring in another central defender, Vardiol or something like that. Maybe look, that would be sensational if we could land him or something similar to that, So we'd have backup, we'd have Van Dijk, we have Kanate, obviously Robbo's there with Costas. We'd have Trent out on this side with Joe as the backup. We've got Matip in there as the floater and maybe one other central defender. We would be set. Obviously in goalkeeping with Alisson there and Quivine, we're pretty set. Adrian is looking probably for a move on and stuff like that, so we'd have to bring a third one in as a deputy and stuff. But we're fairly set there if we can bring in one more central defender. But the midfield is where we need to create this pool of players now. And obviously we're linked with Amrabat, and we're hearing tonight now that we're in advanced talks with McAllister off Brighton, Cancelo, Enzo Fernandez. We're talking to everyone at the moment. So the question really is Liverpool going to go on a mad one this January to push on and land that top four, get back into that top four race and seal that top four spot. Because realistically, you've got Arsenal and Man City kind of in a title race. You've got Newcastle that are hanging in there as well and certainly will influence it and doing a great job. And then you've got one more spot. And who's that one more spot going to go to? Is it going to be Spurs? Is it going to be Liverpool? Is it going to be United? Is it going to be Chelsea or someone else? And then what happens then? Morris in the comments, United never wanted him. Yeah, we heard about that. I heard a few stories today as well from some of the United creators and stuff like that saying that. Now, these guys were devastated last night, Morris, if you remember. Listening to some of their podcasts and some of the stuff that they did. They couldn't believe it. Some of them were even saying that like Gakpo was 90% or 95% done to United. Next thing he signed for Liverpool and they were devastated. And it was the shock of it as well. They didn't even know what to talk about because they were so shocked. And then they come out today and you hear the talk, well, I think I'd rather have got Joe Felix. But the question is, are they going to get Joe Felix? And whether Joe Felix will want to move to United with sort of Champions League up in the air and, you know, Europa League on offer, and who knows what's going to happen there. And are Atletico going to want to do this loan deal with a buy option and stuff like that? I know there's trouble at Atletico with the lad. I know Simeone basically wants to show him the door. I know there's a lot of cost wrapped up in him as well. He's not going to be cheap by any means. He cost a fortune to go in there, and I'm sure he's on a healthy wage. So it'll be interesting to see how that all pans out. But yeah, the talk this morning was very much, we're concentrating on Joe Felix, and I'm not sure whether we really wanted Gakpo or not. The United creators and the United community, they haven't stopped talking about Gakpo since the summer. Morris back in the comments, Liverpool swept in like that guy in the club who was watching your misses all night and tries to pounce when you go for a piss. Yeah. yeah. That's a good way. And listen, this is not the first time. Liverpool have gone home with a number of misses at this stage, if you think about it. Morris, I had this graphic up earlier. I don't know whether you've seen it, but they've swept in and they've taken quite a few at this stage. So United are starting to get really hurt about this. Let's talk about Stephen. Let's talk about Liverpool. Obviously, they reached agreement with Gakpo. 37 million was the release clause and 13 million in add-ons. An absolute steal looking at the boy. Show me a better deal this window when it happens. Obviously, the decision was made to go for a forward. Long-term injuries. Obviously, Luis Diaz and Jota are going to be out till March. Bobby's obviously after picking up a calf injury, so he's out as well. So we were really, really light. And to know how really, really light we were, we started the Villa game with Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain as part of a front three. And that's when it gets to that stage, it's really, really concerning. And I'm sure we have to think forward as well. Like the likelihood is Ox is going to leave in the summer. The likelihood is Kate is going to leave in the summer. The likelihood is James Milner's probably going to hang up his boots. And a number of other players. They're going to have to make a decision. Is Curtis Jones going to be good enough to stay? You can't continue to stay in this team just because you're a Scouser. You have to prove yourself at a certain level and stuff like that. And I hope Curtis does. But those questions will have to be asked in the summer. So there could be a fair clean out there in the summer. So we have to plan for that. And that's what we didn't plan for last year. We didn't plan. Mane went, Origi went, Taki went. All those players went, and we brought in Darwin. And we should have been, there should have been a lot more motion. We should have been doing a lot more business in the summer, and we didn't. And especially in our midfield. As I said earlier, he scored a goal in each of the group games. One with his head, one with his left foot, one with his right foot. So this guy is extremely talented. And I think, as I said earlier, we've brought him in terms of his versatility, which is massive. He can play anywhere across the front, which is fantastic for Jurgen Klopp because basically it has teams thinking, who are we going to deploy on any given day? Whereas if you remember back, it was always Mane, Firmino and Salah, or whatever combination of what's there. Now we have potentially, once these players are back fit, six to pick from. And Gakpo can go in there to link that all up with his versatility and stuff like that. Stephen Warnock today on Sky Sports He said the big thing Liverpool fans will be asking is this a position that we need to strengthen? So was up front. Well, of course, the answer to that is probably yes, we needed to, but of course the focus has been on the midfield. But yes, we did need to strengthen based on the injuries, especially it's absolutely critical that we get back into that top four in terms of the Champions League because the other signings that we're going to bring in are going to be bigger than Gapco. And to get them over the line, Thursday night football is not an option. Nunes haters, he's level on goals with Eddie and Ketia and Jesus combined for Arsenal up to last night. Yeah, I know. Yeah, he gets a lot of stick. I like the lad. There has to be some finished product to a player at that level and that stature as well. I like him. He doesn't lack any effort. He gets into positions and stuff like that. And I think once he bangs in a few goals and gets a bit of confidence, I think he'll absolutely be flying. Morris saying the United are playing Forest at the moment. I haven't looked at the score. I know Forest were hard done by. They got a goal ruled out for offside there earlier. Very, very unlucky. Says Donny van de Beek coming on now. Unreal player. Yeah, I don't know. Donny van de Beek stays at Man United, I would imagine, are numbered, and I would imagine any game time he's getting now is to try and force him into the shop window in some way or another. That would be my view on Donny van de Beek at the moment. Yeah, but Stephen went on to say they're probably thinking that we needed centre midfielders, and there's been a lot of talk about Enzo Fernandez being heavily linked with him as well. A lot of money involved. Would we bring in him and Jude? Massive money and stuff like that. But hey, we've been spending, but we haven't been absolutely crazy. So let's see what happens. As well as Amrabat, who had a really, really good World Cup with Morocco. Excellent player and stuff like that. Real athletic, real energetic, and an absolute boss in that midfield and stuff like that. So if we brought him in, he would be an exceptional signing as well. Again, don't want to get too drawn into players who have exceptional World Cups because sometimes, as we know as Liverpool fans, doesn't always work out for us. Eno's in the comments wearing my new Adidas hoodie. Good man, Eno. Love it. Love it. So yeah, the transfer window opens on Sunday, January the 1st for clubs in England and Scotland. And if all the necessary paperwork is completed, we could see the boy deployed against Brentford on Monday Night Football on January the 2nd. Imagine that. So how tantalising would it be to have a front line of Gakpo, Nunes, Salah, or we could go with, we could probably go with Carvalho, Nunes, Salah, and Gakpo just behind in the pocket. So many options now for us. Absolutely fantastic. And that's why it's such a great signing. So yeah, let us know. Let us know in the comments. Let us know in the chat. Were you shocked as I was that we got him? I think looking at the content that's out there and everything else, I think every Liverpool was shocked and pleasantly surprised. We were celebrating a 3-1 win against Aston Villa. Our second away win of the season in the league. Which was excellent to get that done, and we push on. Morris in the comments still need some centre mids. Absolutely, still need a lot of work in that centre midfield. But we shall see what happens there, and the future's bright. I mean, if you look at the players you brought on, Ben Doak looks going to be a heck of a baller. Vietic in the midfield looks like he's going to be a heck of a baller. So the future is bright, but we have to focus at the moment on the now. Get back into that top four and push ahead and stuff like that. So let's see who else we can attract in. Obviously, we're going to be back with the transfer shows, myself and Darren. Thursday night, we'll be back with Thursday Tier Talk. We'll give you a preview for the New Year programming and what matches are on. We'll preview that. We'll give you a New Year's Beat the Bookie special, as we always do. And we'll talk about the headlines and get Darren's take as well on what's going on at United at the moment. And who knows, we may even have more signings at that stage, or pre-agreements or loans or whatever it is. Martial is back. Morris reckons Martial is back. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, seems to be. I mean, when he takes to the pitch, he's decent. It's just they can't get him on the pitch enough. But he's obviously had to step up. I wonder if they change the way he's training and stuff like that. Has Ten Hag done the job on him there? Be interesting to see. But yeah, thanks everyone for joining me tonight. That has been my take on Cody Gakpo. Looks like he's going to be a sensational signing. Could be playing as early as next Monday. against Brentford, which would be absolutely fantastic. And I'm sure if Klopp deployed him, it give the squad a real good lift and stuff like that. New face around and stuff like that, bit of new energy and stuff like that. Who knows? Could even have a sensational debut. Never an easy game, Brentford and stuff like that, but we got to keep these games rolling, keep these points coming in, and try and eat away at that gap for the top four. But certainly, this is a signing that now puts us in pole position, pending what the other teams do. But let's see what happens. If you want to contact the show, it's the upper tier podcast at gmail.com. Like on the video, smash the subscribe and bell notification button to get updated when we go live and on all the content we drop. Check out all the other shows that are up there. We do the Fantasy Chancer, we do the Monday Mashup, our coverage of Qatar, all that kind of stuff. Check it out. Morris, of course, does our Fantasy Chancer show. It's a great show on fantasy football. Always check it out before your fantasy football happens. And until next time, let's do this, Reds.